On July 2nd, 1997, a reporter did a story for the Austin American-Statesman. The headline read, "Elderly Salado couple missing on road to nowhere." Their story caused great sadness to those that loved them, but it also became one of a great deal of speculation. On June 28th of 1997, Raymond and Lela Howard would take their yearly trip to the Pioneer Day Festival, and their disappearance would inspire an upbeat yet very sad song. Author Raymond Howard and Lela French Copeland lived in Texas. They were married on March the 8th, 1986, and at the time she was 72 and he was 77. Lela's first husband, Jesse, passed away in 1975, and they were married for 40 years. Raymond's first wife, Ethel, she died 10 years later in 1985, and they were married for 53 years. Raymond and Lela both loved the church. They actually went to the same church, and that's how they knew each other. And they had a zest for life, and they just loved being together. They loved being on the go. Raymond's daughter, Kathy Drake, said that they were pretty much inseparable. She said it was one of these types of relationships that you don't really see happen that late in life. She said, "I think that they actually fell in love with each other." Their yearly trip to the festival was less than 20 miles away from where they lived. The Pioneer Day Festival is in Temple, Texas, and it takes place at the Frank W. Mayborn Civic and Convention Center, and it's a day of celebration for longtime residents of that area. They have prizes for the longest married couple, the oldest person in attendance, and they have dancing, entertainment, and things like that. Being that they attended the festival every year, they were already looking forward to their annual short trip. Unfortunately, Raymond was 88 at the time, and he had recently had brain surgery because of an accident that he got in. He hit a parked car. Plus, he also had a stroke. And Lela, who was 83, was showing signs of dementia. For example, Lela's granddaughter, Rhonda Coleman, she said that her grandmother would have something cooking on the stove. And Rhonda said that when she would be fixing her grandmother's hair and she would say, "I need to go and check on the stove," her grandmother would say, "I don't know what you're talking about." Another example, one day Lela called her son saying that they had just been to Walmart for their coffee and breakfast, but they were concerned because the sun wasn't up yet. And at the time it was 10:30. It was 10:30 at night. So their family became very concerned, and they didn't want her to drive anymore, which is something that many families will definitely face as their family member gets older. She did the majority of the driving for the couple. They even hid her keys for a little while, but Rhonda said that she would call her crying and saying that she couldn't find her keys, and she couldn't stand to hear her grandmother cry, so she eventually gave her the keys back, and she said that she could feel how hurt she was. When the day for the festival arrived, Lela's son Hal offered to drive, but Lela said, "Oh no, we'll be fine. We go every year." So once the day of the festival arrived, they were excited and they were ready to go. And they stopped at Walmart for coffee this morning as well, which is something that they did often, and the greeter even remembered seeing them that morning. But the grandmother said that they would usually stay at the festival until about 3, but when 5 o'clock came and they still weren't home, the family contacted police and also the local TV station, and the story was on the news that night. The couple had even been stopped by police in Arkansas twice. Now you may be thinking, I thought they were going to Texas. Why did 2 officers in Arkansas pull them over? We'll get into that. One officer stopped them for driving without their lights on, and Lela kept on driving. The couple told the deputy that they were going home to Texas, but Lela couldn't answer basic questions. She wasn't even driving in the direction of Texas, but because the officer didn't have probable cause to hold them, they were allowed to keep going. The officer did admit that he felt that something was off. The second time they were pulled over, and this was in Yale County, and it was for driving with their high beams on. And like the previous officer, they sent them on their way because they didn't have probable cause to hold them. Unfortunately, both of these stops were before the missing persons report was entered at 10:46 p.m. And as time went on, the reporter continued to cover the story. On July 3rd, she reported that the couple had been spotted at a farmer's market in Arkansas and that authorities in 11 states were on alert. On July 4th, she told readers that authorities had narrowed their search to a 3-county area in Arkansas, and several relatives would spend the July 4th weekend searching for them. And they drove over 1,000 miles, they passed out flyers, they drove back roads, and they questioned law enforcement officials and storekeepers. Their grandson even offered a $1,000 reward for any information that led to the couple. By the 9th of July, the couple had been missing for 11 days. They had a cat named Happy, and he was waiting for them at home. So Lela's son and daughter-in-law were looking after the house. They would turn the porch light on at the house so that it wouldn't look so lonely. Her son and his wife, they live right next door. It was also reported that the couple had laid out several changes of clothes on their bed and had even unplugged the TV from the wall. Their story would also be in local newspapers, including the Austin American-Statesman, and the story was also on the CBS morning show, where they got a flood of leads, but nothing ever led to anything. Now, the lead singer of Fastball, he lived in Austin, and he said that as he read more and more articles about the developing story, more thoughts about the couple came to him, and he thought that maybe they don't want to be found. Maybe they're sick of being responsible, and they just want to go out and have fun. He was imagining a couple making the choice to leave home for the open road, where they became immortal and lived happily ever after. This makes me think of the ending scene in Thelma and Louise. Sadly, when Lela and Raymond were finally found, it was too late. The site where they were found was about 70 miles from where they were stopped by a sheriff's deputy near Paris, Arkansas, and this was on the night of the 28th. On July the 12th, two teenagers were hiking in the Ouachita Mountains, and they found the couple's car in a ravine at the bottom of a 25-foot cliff off of Arkansas State Highway 7, and lives were forever changed that day. Once police reached the area, they found the couple's Oldsmobile, and they estimated that they had gone off the cliff at about 50 miles per hour. The highway that they were driving on before the crash was known for being a treacherous, curvy road, and when police arrived, they found Raymond's body in the floorboards, and he appeared to have died instantly. After they wrecked, Lela had put the car in park. She turned off the headlights, she walked around to the passenger side, and she opened Raymond's door. And then she crawled about 20 feet before collapsing, and she was still holding her purse and her keys. And they were more than 350 miles from home, police said. The area had been searched multiple times, even by helicopter, but the terrain made it extremely difficult to see the vehicle. And the lack of skid marks indicated that Lela was either confused or distracted when she ran a stop sign and she drove the car straight into the ravine. And this case was the first time that Arkansas police were aware of the new Safe Return program that registers memory-impaired individuals in a nationwide system. Sadly, they were about a mile from their cousin's house when the cops stopped them. But I think that was a coincidence. I haven't found anything that said that they were actually going to visit a cousin. Because the disappearance of Lela and Raymond made national headlines, their eventual discovery would raise concerns on whether or not the elderly needed to undergo driver testing. But unfortunately, as we age, our reflexes and our reaction times will change. And many seniors are also dealing with cognitive decline and impaired vision. So the Texas Department of Public Safety now has it where if you're 79 years or older, you have to come in and renew your license in person. They were both buried beside their respective spouses. The death certificates say that the official town where they died is Fountain Lake, Arkansas. Now, Fountain Lake is located between Hot Springs, Arkansas, and Hot Springs Village, Arkansas. The Arkansas State Police made sure that in future training sessions that they include a review of this case so that officers will be more aware and they will recognize the warning signs. And when I was little, a body was found at the end of our road. I live in the country on a private road, and an elderly man had gotten lost. I'm not 100% sure of all of the details because I was so young, but I know that he ended up passing away in his car, and my grandpa found him a few days later. We had a problem with people illegally dumping trash on our road, so my grandpa would check out the area every few days. And also, a few years back, we had another elderly person get lost on our road, and she ended up hitting someone at the top of our road. She thought she was in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which is over an hour away from here. Another story involving an elderly couple, I'll include the link in the description for you. In October of this year, 2020, an elderly couple was found dead on a hiking trail. They had a suicide pact. Now, since you know a little bit more about this story, this is the part of the song that gets me every single time.